The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelist, Josh Gigala from the Standard.io.
Bring it on.
Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Evening all.
Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Good day, my friends.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one. Former crypto billionaire insists Bitcoin will soar to $250,000 a coin within the next 18 months. That's right, Draper is back again, and this time, in addition to buying the Silk Road Bitcoins, he's claiming the price of Bitcoin will come back, and it will come back fast. Josh Gigala, what do you think about Draper's return and his gutsy $250,000 a coin in 18 months prediction?
Anytime someone has a prediction, I say, whatever you reckon, mate, whatever you reckon. It's just like your opinion, man. What I find interesting there, it says former Bitcoin billionaire or former billionaire. I'm pretty sure he's still a billionaire. I don't know about former. Like, there's nothing really that's happened. Especially over the last 2 years, all these billionaires became multi billionaires because they put their money in the right places. So I don't buy it. And in terms of his prediction, could well be. I mean, it's 21 million divided by infinity. So whatever you reckon the price might be, it could be. The 21 million divided by everything, really.
It's all good when the old ones come back once again to say nice things about Bitcoin. Sure, I think we've missed Draper for a while. He hasn't said anything in a long time. It's interesting the way the media always goes back to the people that they know. They never go to somebody new and try to get a new idea. They're always like, we used to talk to that guy about Hotmail. I bet he knows about Bitcoin. Ben Ark, your thoughts on Draper's prediction and the Bitcoin market?
I think it's possible. I mean, we're almost hitting that bottom, that good old 10K, which I'm looking for, 10K UK GBP. And then I'm getting butterflies in my tummy. I feel like something's brewing, and that we could in fact be heading towards the bottom, and then we'll make our slow, incline upward. I'm thinking maybe he's overshooting it by 250, but I think maybe 220, I think, is probably the number we should be aiming for in maybe 18 months. Or a couple of years, but it's Tim Draper who makes these like wild guesses on the Bitcoin price, and everyone loves it. He's a high energy guy. Maybe he is a former billionaire, but if he's holding his Bitcoin, then he will be back to being a billionaire. Just look at the Bitcoin ecosystem. We're at the same price level as what we were at back in 2017, and the industry is so much more advanced, and there's so many more projects. Everything's getting easier. So now I think, whereas when we were at the top 6 months ago, whatever it was, and I had this feeling like we'd become overvalued because the industry hadn't matured enough. I'm now getting that feeling like we're heavily undervalued, which is what happens when, the price drops suddenly. We are going to go under that actual value of what Bitcoin probably should be at, and that's where we are now. So it will go back up. Tim Draper will be a billionaire again if he's not already, like Josh said. And he's a fun guy. He's done very well on Bitcoin. He's even though he makes these wild guesses and estimates, like, he should still be listened to because he's made some very good calls in the Bitcoin space. And I think it's likely like it could happen, but 220 probably the top.
Obviously, I'm a perma-bull, and I never understand when Bitcoin goes down. I always think there's still only 21 million. If the code hasn't been broken, if the protocol hasn't been broken, why is it going down? And the best explanation that I can give you is that a lot of people who don't understand what they bought saw the price go down and then sold, thinking that Bitcoin was broken, or the 21 million coins idea was going to go away, or just like I said, they don't know what they bought. They bought a hot new thing and it was supposed to go up and it went down, so they ditched out early. Whereas most people we've talked to on this show and these kind of shows we've been doing here on the World Crypto Network and Mad Bitcoins for years and years, the general idea, if you can stick it out 4 years, if you can stick it out 5 years, no one's ever lost money who can last that long. But these people, they have short-term horizons, they have short-term thinking, and they sell their Bitcoin, they drive the price down, and at least according to this article, they break our good friend Tim Draper from being 3 commas to 2 commas. And it's just not the same. You know, he just can't get the kind of spaces at a restaurant that he wants to get. The reservations just aren't there. Dan, Eve, what do you think about Draper's prediction? $250,000 a Bitcoin. That means if you had 4 Bitcoins, you'd have $1 million.
Whoa. Well, I think that long term it's going to happen, but maybe 18 months is a bit short term. I think that partly because it still puts us about 6 months before the halvening, and Bitcoin doesn't hit all time highs until after the halvening, right? That's how it's happened historically. So that's the kind of pattern that I'm sort of seeing. It's quite an obvious pattern if you just look at the halvings and when the all-time highs happen. The fact that I think they're estimating his wealth, the fact that he's not a billionaire anymore, based on only the 30,000 Bitcoins that he bought from the Silk Road confiscation in 2014, which puts it about 600 million, just over 600 million today's prices. So, but I'm sure he probably has more Bitcoin, right? Like I very much doubt like he just bought that stash and was like, that's it, I'm done. He'd probably be buying more. He may have less than that. I don't know nowadays, but that's probably what they're using as a yardstick of saying he's a Bitcoin billionaire. So I do find that the comments are very 2013. These comments that are on the article, there's no such thing as crypto billionaire. In FDIC monies, proof I'm a crypto trillionaire. Nothing from nothing is still nothing. And then other people harping on about the fact that you can't ever sell your Bitcoin. Like that's an argument I heard like years ago, and it's clearly not true now. I mean, it's insane it's literally saying the sky is what this is the sky. What color isn't the sky? Well, the sky's a color that it's not usually, right? That's it's just crazy, some of these things. And also saying like this one other guy's like Bitcoin and cryptos remain completely overvalued. They have no intrinsic value whatsoever. Do some research, except for money laundering or high risk gambling games. So yeah, very 2013 comments there. I do think I'm still with Ben. That I think I do think we're gonna go lower. It's gonna go, I'm not a predictor or prognosticator of prognostications and prostations and all that, but I do think it's gonna go lower. It just seems like we're not there at like the weeping territory yet. Like there's still hope, right? And we've got to go past the hope stage to desperation and we're sort of we're still at this stage where it's bad enough that you can mock people, like you can put up a billboard saying, hey, crypto bros, come work at McDonald's. We need to go past that so that it's offensive to make fun of Bitcoin people, so they feel sorry for us. That's when you know the turning point is. So yeah, I think there's still some room to go, but the article itself is quite funny. It's like someone sat there going, here's 11 Bitcoin billionaires who have lost loads of money. Like that's the premise of the article. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, I think we've got a little bit to go, and 250K, yeah, in the future, but maybe not 18 months. I can't see 18 months, unfortunately.
Well, at least we have something to look forward to now. Like Dan says, there'll be a point where they'll say, we used to make fun of Bitcoiners, but now we're worried that they'll all kill themselves, so we stopped. That's positive, sunny lining. But I do agree with Dan. I think all the old FUD is back again. Everyone who's ever been critical of Bitcoin is here to dump on it. But once again, as someone with a long-term perspective on this, Is it back to $300? Is it back to 1,000? Did it retrace? Did it retrace 1,200 like Tone said for years and years and years? Oh, it's not a real rally till we retrace 1,200. Like over and over again, it's still 20,000. Like that's ridiculous from 300.
Yeah.
Like if you bought one at 300 and now it's worth 20,000, are you crying about it? I don't think so. And as I've said before with Tim Draper, we never should have, the US government that's owned by the people of the United States never should have sold those 30,000 Bitcoins. We should have kept them and fulfilled the Smithsonian Institution's dream to have one Smithsonian in every state so that everyone could go to a decent museum. Sorry, Dan, I cut you off. Did you have more on Draper?
I was actually just going to say, so in 2017, I started doing interviews for it was, shame on me, but it was an ICO magazine. I think it was literally called like the ICO mag, and I interviewed like Vinnie Lingham and Adam Draper, Tim Draper's son. I was in on the interview with Tim Draper, but I wasn't. But anyway, so this was the first solo interview, and it was at home, and he was running a bit late, so I was like, I'm going to neck a bit, need my confidence up. And I literally did the classic working from home thing. I had a t-shirt on. I had like no trousers on underneath. So I'm just walking around in my boxers and like effing and blinded, not about him being late, but like, pull yourself together, do this interview. And then I literally neck another bit and I sit down. And as I'm putting the thing down, he's like just sat there staring at me, like looking quite amused, in fairness. And I was like, oh, hi, Adam. How's it going? The interview went quite well, actually, but he's a really kind of interesting character, actually. Obviously, him and his dad did a lot of investment in general Bitcoin startups, back then and before. So I can't remember Boost, but is it Boost VC? I think it was Adam Draper and Tim Draper. Yeah. So, but yeah, nice guys, very nice guys actually to chat to.
2017 is a really good analogy because you have all these ICOs, like a lot of scamming ICOs, a lot of liquidity which gets slopped up, and then a lot of dumping on the market, which then pushes the price of Bitcoin down. And then similarly, you have all these scams which have popped up with the pump we had, and then you have all this dumping on the market, and then all this liquidity floods on. You have this crazy crash, and then the market absorbs it. There's inflation's going crazy. People are looking at Bitcoin, seriously looking at Bitcoin. As I said, the general infrastructure and projects are far bigger now, and there's more of them than there ever has been. So once that liquidity has been absorbed, and then once people start looking at Bitcoin as a serious place to maybe just put their wealth as a hedge against all the crazy inflation, which they're experiencing in their real life, and they think that it's potentially at a low, and they could make a profit on it, then that's the thing which is going to be the real driver for Bitcoin going up. But ultimately, like all these dumps, you're building every cycle, you build up like more of the hodler bedrock, the seasoned veterans, Bitcoin veterans, and upon the bedrock, we build great things. So it's the only way is up, baby, from here, I think. But yeah, it's just compounded dumping by people and by scams. Someone who's having to meet their financial obligations, instead of selling 0.05 of a Bitcoin, then I'll having to sell 0.1 of a Bitcoin every month. And then that just compounds and compounds and compounds until people start running out of their stack. They have to go back to work and blah, blah. And that's happening right now. So I do feel like we're getting close to the bottom. I really do. And I think people are miserable enough for it to be potentially the bottom.
And going back to that 2017 analogy, so the peak was what, like 19,600 or something, which is $2,000 less than the price of Bitcoin right now. And just think about, well, for a start, the Lightning Network as it currently stands, like that wasn't there in 2017. All the infrastructure we have now, all the businesses accepting it. It's the price back then when you look at it was crazy, but now it's very much justified. I think, as you pointed out, Ben, like the services, the infrastructure that we do have now, it justifies that price we currently have, and it seems undervalued now.
You've got these countries adopting Bitcoin, and then inevitably they are going to be looking at the stablecoin stuff. And as soon as you start building stablecoins on top of Bitcoin, and countries can start using it as medium of exchange, it's huge. It's huge, like the amount of Bitcoin which is going to get locked up over the next 18 months. So Tim Draper, he could be onto something.
Cooking with gas, Tim.
Well, Dan's just reminded me of all our old Tim Draper days. We used to go out to, I thought it was called Blockchain University, but now I remember it was called Draper University. They named it after themselves. And they had Boost VC, they had a startup accelerator down there in San Mateo. And Adam Draper used to always mention in all of his interviews and his articles that he was going to build an Iron Man suit. But it's been about 5 years and I haven't seen any flying Iron Man from Adam Draper. So we'll just have to hold out hope that he's still working on it. I still think one of the best, and there are many great arguments for buying Bitcoin, but one of the simplest arguments that you can think about is this 21 million argument. As a collector, as a person that collects baseball cards, curio cards, NFTs, whatever it is, there's only 21 million. Every millionaire in the world can't even have one. Like if you could get your hands on one of these things and just hold on to it and not sell it, you have to assume it's going to be worth something in the future because of this collector's mentality. People just wanting to buy them, wanting to get their number of Bitcoin, let alone all the network effects and the technology and all the other things we talk about, but just this very simple idea that it's locked at 21 million and you could get your hands on one still, I think is very powerful. You guys ready to move on to the exit question? Josh Shigala, you're competing against the travel Bitcoin ball. It's smaller, but it still knows everything. It's still also totally and completely bald. It seems to be something to do about predicting and being bald.
Yeah.
But Josh, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week? Obviously, Tim Draper predicting $250,000 a coin. What will you say?
I think there's generally in these downward motions, there's usually this upward motion. This is what we're seeing right now. And people are so fearful of what just happened that they tend to like wait for a little bit of up and then they sell. That's why after a massive collapse, usually we see a sideways motion for a while with a bit of waves. And that's what I think will be down next week.
Ben Ark, higher or lower?
I think lower, but I think it's a good time to start doing the dollar cost averaging, start buying Bitcoin, because you don't want to try and buy the very bottom because you're going to miss out, but start buying now. And then, it will hit the bottom fairly soon. And then it'll start going back up, and just buy, hold on to it. Like Thomas said, 4 years, lock it up somewhere in cold storage, and you'll be gravy.
Everyone's saying lower. Dan, Eve, will you make it 100% unanimous support?
Yeah, I think we're going to go. I think go. Well, in fact, no. Sorry, actually, that's what I was going to say. I think we're going to go. I would think we'll be higher next week, just based on the current price now. But then it will be lower afterwards. I think this is a mini bump, and then it's going to be a bit lower. There's going to be a bit more pain, a bit more blood in the streets, a bit more panic, and then
dead cat bounce, eh?
Yeah,
dead cat bounce.
Dead cat bounce. That's it.
Yes, but even a dead cat bounces. It receives some loft. You have to throw it really hard. All right, here we go. The magical Bitcoin predictor ball, the source of all truth. This is how you should make all of your decisions from now on, even messing up my focus. How fun is that? Here we go. We're shaking the ball. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? No. A solid no from the ball.
Well, it's unanimous.
There goes my optimism, I guess. But I have enjoyed this little like 5% bump or something that we had recently. That's been nice. Any kind of positive action is nice to see from the old Bitcoin. Moving on to issue 2. ETFs are back again. Yes, we've got 2 ETFs for you. One ETF will allow investors to bet against Bitcoin, is launching this week as cryptocurrency has plunged 70% from its peak. That ETF, there's a second ETF being launched by Coinbase. They're calling it a Nano Bitcoin futures via derivative exchange, whatever that means. And Coinbase will allow you to buy Bitcoin futures as well as, I'm thinking, a spot Bitcoin ETF. There was a strange tweet by Bitcoin Magazine claiming that Coinbase would be launching on Monday with a spot ETF. They quickly deleted the tweet. That's the most interesting kind of tweet. Let's go to Ben Ark this time. Ben Ark, What do you think about the ETFs? Will Americans finally be able to invest their stock market money in Bitcoin? And what about this short Bitcoin futures? Everyone who hates Bitcoin can now short it into the ground. Will this hurt the price of Bitcoin, or will all the ETFs just cancel each other out? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because years ago we were like, oh, ETF, we're going to get Bitcoin ETFs. Oh God, I can't wait for the Bitcoin ETFs. And now I'm like, oh Christ, another one? Really? Can we have to have another ETF? Can that just leave us alone? Yeah, every which way in which you can bet for and against Bitcoin, there will be an ETF. There will be on ramps for large, investment firms to be able to easily on ramp and off ramp and whatever else. I'm not that clued in when it comes to how you would use something like this, but I was going to ask Josh about this. Could this help with like hedging, Josh, like hedging prices of Bitcoin by hedging your bets by using like an ETF?
Oh, Josh is muted because I muted you. Sorry,
Yeah,
Josh.
like anytime you can short something, it allows you to hedge your bets. But really, what are you hedging? Generally, you want to be hedging if you're moving Bitcoin, like you've borrowed some, or you owe some Bitcoin to someone while you're holding it, and it starts to go down in price. You want to put a bet on the down so that no matter if it goes up or down, you're kind of equal. But in terms of the stock market, I feel like this is not really needed yet in terms of that side of things. But it also depends how that's all structured.
I just thought about people having Bitcoin on their balance sheet, whether they could like hedge against it for, in case it drops in value too much, they can buffer out those drops. Whether it's like a useful tool for people who just want some Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but they don't want to have the exposure risk of the volatility we have.
Yeah, I think the main ones who benefit are Bitcoin miners. I've heard a lot of articles recently about Bitcoin miners being practically addicted to hedging because they need to cover both sides. Sometimes they're holding a lot of Bitcoins. They can't always sell them as much as they want, so they can use these futures markets to hedge. Like you guys are talking about.
Like the local Bitcoin people, or they used to, I don't know, they would try and hedge Bitcoin a lot. So obviously if you're buying and selling and you're holding Bitcoin for a period.
Yeah, we would do it. We use it a lot for Voltoro, because when someone sells a whole bunch of gold, for instance, we have to hedge that. And when someone buys a whole lot of gold with Bitcoin, we need to transfer that to different exchanges. Meanwhile, and so while we're holding that, because we've already instantly bought the gold, we have to make sure that we don't lose out on that. So we'll hedge it on a short while we're holding the thing, because we've already sold. And then, there's all sorts of need for shorting, but why not? There's plenty of options to short Bitcoin already. I don't know why you need the ETF one. I think the ETF one, and I find it interesting that the establishment, doesn't allow any sort of spot ETF in there at all, but allows you to short, and that really puts them downward. And what sort of short is it? Are they actually borrowing physical Bitcoin? Are they borrowing real Bitcoin, or is it full on naked shorting? Let's see. I mean, it's a very interesting move. It is the market. Let's see what happens.
I remember Elon Musk, before he went totally crazy, used to talk a lot about naked short selling, as well as Patrick Byrne at Overstock.com before he went totally crazy. And I agree with their points on naked short selling. I do not support naked short selling. And I do think it's interesting, Josh, how much they dislike Bitcoin, that they're willing to create these negative instruments to attempt to short it. They're probably thinking that there's a lot of Bitcoin haters out there and they could get their money into their financial instrument, and they just want the fees. They don't care which way it goes for the bettors. But it is interesting. It's always the negative side that gets more support. It's never the positive side of Bitcoin that's being supported.
Yep.
I guess for regulators, like you don't like Bitcoin, they're like, oh, cool. You want to make a shorting mechanism ETF against Bitcoin? Brilliant. Go. It's easier to get approval.
Well, Dan, Eve, what do you think? We've got 2 Bitcoin ETFs. One, you can short them. The other's at Coinbase. This is just the greatest time of our lives, right?
I think a shorting ETF is just spiteful. Now, I can understand why you need, lots of businesses would need to be able to short, to hedge their position, right? You don't want to be caught by Bitcoin, dropping, and then especially if you've got fiat obligations, you need to be able to cover those, and holding Bitcoin and not being able to short and therefore hedge against it dropping. That significantly opens up your risk to failure and not being able to pay your suppliers and etc. So it's kind of needed. It's like an what's the word, like an evil, no, what's that? An evil need, the evil you need. I don't know, I can't remember what it is.
Evil.
The necessary evil. But obviously, when I first started to trading Bitcoin, I was like trading on in terms of contracts for difference, CFDs, right? So I used to trade on like eToro, and there was just something that felt so bad about shorting Bitcoin. Like it was almost like a rule. I was like, even if I knew it was going down and it would put me through financial pain, I'd be like, oh, but I can't really short, I can't really short Bitcoin. And so it just felt dirty shorting Bitcoin. But some businesses will need to do it to survive, especially if they do want to open up their exposure to Bitcoin. They can't do it with just holding Bitcoin and not have any form of hedging to reduce the risk of it dropping even further. The fact is that whilst the regulators kind of don't want to approve spot ETF, they're very wary of it because of protecting people. They're quite happy to open up shorts, which would help not protect those who are already in Bitcoin anyway, like to a certain extent. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of a it's a necessary evil, but at the same time, it's kind of a bit hypocritical of regulators to open up a short ETF.
I just remember that every new technology has been shorted, right? When radio and television came out, everyone was like, let's short that into the ground. And then the internet came out and web pages and HTML and Moore's law, and they just shorted it into the ground. And then internet pornography came out, and I never got my option to short that. Like everybody, we're like, why can't we short everything? And they're like, well, not that one, sir, not that one.
It's the true only up, as it were.
Josh Segala, your thoughts on the ETF? Go ahead.
Look, shorting, for those that don't know, is an extremely important part of price finding. You cannot just have a market that only bets on the price going up. That in itself is a distortion. You need to equal that out. The yin needs a yang. You need to bet on the way down too. So it's a very legitimate and normal part of the market to find a true price. Otherwise, you don't really find a true price. You just find a little bit overhyped. So it is important, but like we mentioned before, naked short selling, the idea of short selling is I'll borrow 10 from Thomas, 10 units, and I'll sell it. And then I hope the price will go down and I'll buy it back, pay Thomas back, and hey presto, I'll keep the difference. Now, naked short selling is this thing where if you're a large banking institution like JP Morgan Chase or others such in that ilk, will literally not borrow any of it, just sell stuff that they don't have at all. And this sounds unbelievable, but that actually happens. And in fact, it can be used as a really bad tool to basically destroy your competition. So if you're Amazon, you could go to your mates over at JP Morgan and say, hey, make it short sells, overstock, because they were sort of competition, right? And that drove, and you could really crush that price for a long time. And there's been very large rumors. In fact, there's been even lawsuits against JP Morgan Chase for doing that against the silver price too, keeping the silver price crushed. So there's lots of tomfoolery. And in fact, if you look at the whole Wall Street bets guys, a lot of that, the bet against GameStop was also playing with these players that were naked short selling, and they wanted to step in and just wreck them because they thought there's way more shorts than should be possible right now, something like that. So I'm not sure of the full story, but I think if I remember correctly, that was the case in that scenario too. So yeah, but to end my point, there is a very legitimate reason people need to be able to short. And I think maybe if it's available now for Bitcoin, it's also a good thing.
Well, and I do agree, Josh, if they're going to short, they need to put up the money, they need to put up the security. The idea of having these naked shorts, which help the price go down, but don't actually have any money behind them, is just insane. And there's many things about the financial market that people find insane and they can't accept and they can't understand. And this just seems to be one more of those things where some companies, some people are allowed to take this bet without paying the other side. If you hear about this as just a normal person, you're like, hey, I don't like Facebook. I think it's going to go down. I want to short it. And then you go and do it. And you learn, at least from my novice understanding, you have to pay like a little fee each day that you're short. So the longer that you're short against Facebook, if it doesn't dip quickly, your stack is getting smaller. And that's, that keeps you from shorting, and it does reward people who buy value stocks that hold it long and they think it's a good company and they think it's going to go up. It benefits them. But if you don't have to put up the security, if you don't have to pay the fee, all of that goes away. And then suddenly it's the same betting for and betting against a stock. And then it's like, at what point are we predatory, just destroying companies because we can? And just monsters and whales going out. And like, it's happened recently, like with things like Luna, back in the old days, Paycoin, where they said it would keep at a $20 floor. And anytime you hear that, where they're like, oh, it'll keep at this thing, there's a whole bunch of people that want to bet against that, because that's easy money if they can knock it off the $20 floor. The same thing for taking Luna and its dollar peg and knocking that off. It's almost easy pickings for them. But again, they actually have to provide the security with a Bitcoin. If you're going to short it on a Bitcoin exchange, you have to actually provide the Bitcoin. So I do think it makes a big difference if they provide the security.
Yeah.
Isn't it incredibly you think to short such a volatile asset as well? Because always in Bitcoin, there's some black swan event. There's something comes out the woodwork, innovation, some incredible thing someone's working on, and then that gives it Bitcoin's ability to be able to rise and go up in value. But
FUD always hits harder, right? Like FUD is, negative events always have more of an impact than positive events.
Well, and I think that the target market here for these ETFs is not people that are buying Bitcoin on Coinbase or that are interested in crypto. I think these are haters. I think you're trying to motivate that hater market and get those haters in there to bet against the thing that they hate. And I don't think they're looking at fundamentals, Ben. I think they're looking at how much they hate it. And part of that comes down to these crypto people bought at $300 and they sold at 50K, like it was that easy. Right now we're in this huge downturn. Everybody's got bags that are worthless sitting all around them. And they're like, oh, this is why hodling's hard. This is why you earn some money for being an investor, if your bets pay off, or you lose a whole bunch of money from being an investor. And, it doesn't always work out. But again, it's these people that are taking the risk that make the rewards. And these people on the sidelines that have been criticizing for so long haven't had a way to make money. But maybe they can put their money where their mouth is and just bet it all against Bitcoin. And we'll see how that turns out for them. Yeah.
Years ago, I wanted to build a site called Bearer of Bad News or something similar. And the point of it is that as soon as some news came out, it would be like that could negatively impact a stock. It would be rated, and then like people could then go and short whatever stock it was. And I think what gave me the idea was it was when the 787 had the battery issue. And it was like the fastest £100 I'd made. Like it was like rapid. I was like, read the article on BBC and I was like, they grounded him, ooh, and just put like a quick short on Boeing and then cashed out. And I was like, wow, it's really good. But I never got round to it. So bearer of bad news or something like that. Because you can make a lot of money off shorts for just some really basic bad news about a stock. Maybe not, but obviously Bitcoin as well. But Bitcoin is takes a lot more to move it than a bit of bad news. Like WhatsApp, when WhatsApp, Kylie Jenner came off WhatsApp or whatever, that would have been a great event to quickly put up on the site and be like, short. So shorting's fine unless it's against Bitcoin.
It's fun to chase those news events, but just as often you take it in the shorts, because it, as fast as it goes up, it suddenly goes down as well. So if you're not willing to sell and get that $100, you might have $100 loss on the other side, and it just happens so fast. You're like, I'm a winner, I'm a winner. I am not a winner. I am not a winner. But let's move on to the exit question. Coinbase, the master of all business models, seems to be in everybody's business but their own. At one time, they were a simple website where you could log on and buy Bitcoins. Now it's become a veritable shitcoin casino, including with my personal favorite shitcoins, the NFT collectibles. As Coinbase continues to steal everyone's business model, will the ETF be successful? Will Coinbase finally get the precious fees that they've been looking for so long, or will Binance or another player come in and steal that sweet ETF money from Coinbase, just like Cripsy and so many others have in the past? Josh Sigala, what about Coinbase? Is this the business model that finally works for the wayward company?
I mean, I don't think they're unprofitable. I think they're doing extremely well. And I think this is one of the keys to being relevant in a regulated space is by regulatory capture. And so they will take this game and they'll pretty much make it impossible for anyone else to compete by over-regulating or writing the regulations for the space and basically capturing it. And I mean, you know, I'm just happy that it's a crypto native company. In the UK, what we're seeing is that the banks are in the pockets of the regulators, and they're basically regulating startups out of the way so that banks can take it all. So the only people that can actually deal with crypto are like, you know, Revolut and stuff like that. And this is really unfortunate because crypto was forged by startups. It's a great way to innovate in the space. And you get all of these people saying, we need more regulation, especially after big bear markets, when really all the regulations are basically written by the old school guard and the establishment.
Well, and there's nothing you can do if your stocks go down. A friend of mine who doesn't like crypto sent me a story recently where they said people who had lost money on Coinbase were then going to sue Coinbase because they didn't say, oh, you could lose money on this. But it's the same old thing. You made the bets, you made the buys and the sells. Now be a big boy or a big girl or a big whatever you want to call yourself, and you know, take the responsibility, take the consequences. Ben Ark, what do you think? Will Coinbase finally find their perfect product market fit this time?
Is this for shorting Bitcoin? This is for shorting Bitcoin, is it?
For having an ETF in general, just being so cutting edge to implement the ETFs that we've been talking about for 5 years or more now.
Yeah, I think Josh is right. They're incredible. I mean, this is why they continue to trudge on, is because they're incredibly profitable. But eventually, they will get usurped by some better technology. And I look forward to that day. But for now, they're just going to continue to be profitable and do the regulatory capture stuff and increase their monopoly holding and standing. Yeah, they will continue to do Coinbase, to be Coinbase.
Well, and remember, their original business model of making money on the fees of selling Bitcoin does seem to be in trouble with Strike launching almost zero fees. And then I heard recently that Binance had actually gone there and they went to zero fees to buy Bitcoin. So competition does continue to
I like
drive
that Jack Mallers, he called that like just because people were like, well, why didn't you just undercut Coinbase and then just keep undercutting and then have this, like, you know, this battle? And Jack Mallers was like, no, I'm a chess player and I'm just going for the jugular. I'm just going to go zero fee. And I thought it was nice. Well done, Jack.
Very good. Dan, Eve, what do you think? Coinbase finally going to find success this time? A long-lasting product. They're not going to have to steal anyone else's model again.
Well, I think they're you know, as much as it pains me, they're seemingly pretty successful. I mean, obviously they've got shitcoins on there, lots of shitcoins. So they could if it all goes bad, they could become a poo museum or something, like on the Isle of Wight. It's the National Poo Museum of England on the Isle of Wight, but which is dedicated. Sorry, it's dedicated to the collection, conservation, and display of feces, which is like the shitcoins displayed on Coinbase. But yeah, I think Binance they kind of pulled back because of not being so brave around the regulatory side. Coinbase have been kind of very compliant, right, haven't they? So it does seem kind of that they've been cozying up to regulators quite a lot, and that's probably going to benefit them if they do want to bring out more products that are regulated. But yeah, I think ultimately they are going to be a pretty successful company, and when the next bull run comes around, I can imagine they'll probably be number one on the app list again, and not forgotten about, as they are kind of now that we're in a bit of a bear market.
I've never heard of a poo museum, but they did have a chamber pot museum in Prague. I looked at that. They said they had Napoleon's chamber pot. And while Coinbase may be very successful, it sure hasn't done anything for their terrible stock price, which has been an absolute disaster from the beginning, and for these employees, some of whom have recently been hired, told that yes, you will be hired no matter what, and then were fired before they could even start work. So a bit of a disaster there, a bit of a growing pains if you want to be on their side. But I agree with the panel. I think Coinbase will continue and be profitable. And I think regulatory capture is the best way to understand why they keep trying to go into so many businesses. They just think they could own them all and then use their strong lobbying and strong incumbent position and pile of money to keep anyone else out of their businesses, which is really classy, I guess, if you've read Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1. And you think that all startups should be practicing to be monopolies. It's an interesting way to think.
And if the Peter Thiel's a good example, because PayPal, the regulatory capture thing, they cozied up to regulators, but then also the regulators cozied up to PayPal because they were able to, slow down the inevitable progression of a digitally native money by having something which tried to replicate it in some cosplay way. And it's similar with Coinbase. I'm sure it's not just the Coinbase cozying up. I always imagine the regulators are cozying up to Coinbase because they understand that this, is another way for them to be able to restrict Bitcoin's growth.
And one of the original ideas for PayPal was a coin almost similar to Bitcoin, where you could transfer it and pay for anything. And they quickly realized if they allowed, PayPal the coin to be used off of their servers, you could buy anything with that coin. And in some ways, they would be responsible, just like Facebook's Libra coin that never got anywhere because of the complexities with releasing a cryptocurrency. It's a lot easier to do it the way Satoshi did it, just to release it to the internet as a white paper, as software, and then to just kind of walk away, and whatever happens, happens. It's a lot harder if you run a professional company and you have to take all the responsibility for what you made. Moving on, check out WCN Clips. We've got 110 subscribers, but we need to get going on making some new videos. We've got Roger Ver promoting Dogecoin, Fidelity offering Bitcoin for 401ks, and the ApeCoin DAO airdrops. I wonder how those turned out. I'll bet we predicted they'd turn bad, and they did. Moving on to issue 3. IBEX onboards 85 merchants in Miami to the Bitcoin Lightning Network. Yes, merchant adoption is back again. They did that classic thing. They set the teams to the stores. They got the stores to accept Bitcoin. But now the classic question of the chicken and the egg. Dan, Eve, will anyone shop at these stores that now accept Bitcoin and Lightning? Or have they forgotten to motivate both sides of the market? And will they see the success that we saw back when BitPay launched the Bitcoin Bowl, also in Florida, also trying to get merchant adoption, also sending teams to the business, but resulting in no sales for the merchant? Dan, Eve, are we ready for merchant adoption now that we have the Lightning Network?
Well, I suppose the difficult thing is well, these businesses already existed, right? So that all they're doing is now adding a new payment channel. But you know, the thing that you do have to do is get someone who's already going to the store, either who's already got Lightning or Bitcoin Lightning, or to get them to buy it, right? So it almost needs to be accompanied with a bit of a sales procedure, right? Like where they can upsell some Bitcoin, and then at the till, right? You know how they go, oh, if you by the way, oh, by the way, do you have our store card? Oh, by the way, have you heard of our Lord and Savior Satoshi? And they need to roll that out and get people to buy a bit of Bitcoin in order to then pay for their goods. But obviously that's a bit sort of long-winded. So primarily it's going to be maybe people experimenting who have already got into Bitcoin. They've got a bit of Lightning, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go to this store because it sells whatever I need, but also I can pay for it in Lightning over Lightning. So I think it's going to start off a bit gimmicky, maybe not used so much, but it could be something that draws people to the stores. They may even get increased footprint from new customers who are visiting Miami. That's trying to be this Bitcoin city, and they're like, right, whilst in Miami, whilst when in Rome, yada yada yada, when in Miami, I've got to go and spend some Bitcoin in a store. Because even now there's been to loads of conferences, and there's very few that like you can go out in the street and actually buy something in Bitcoin. And in fact, one of the only ones I really remember is in HCPP. There was a Bitcoin store that we all missioned to after the conference. But it was something novel, right? You want to go, you've got Bitcoin, you want to go and use it somewhere. So, and same with Room 77 after Block Show Europe in 2018 when I went. And so I think it could help drive customers to the store. It's going to be slow. It's not going to be this stampede of people going to buy Bitcoin, because largely it's going to be people who already have Bitcoin who just want to spend it somewhere. So hopefully it does have a positive effect. And if anything, that the rollout is just really easy. So you might as well have it just in case someone wants to use it. And then gradually that will grow over time. So as long as they don't have any kind of crazy charging structure, fee structure of setting it up, then it's something that merchants can just have, and then people will gradually use it more and more.
It is funny if you go to a Bitcoin meetup or a Bitcoin conference and you ask people, do you actually use Bitcoin? Do you have some on your wallet right now on your phone? Do you even have a wallet on your phone? If I wanted to send you $10 or take $10 off you, would you be able to do it? The answer most of the time is no. People look at you like you're insane for wanting to spend Bitcoin or thinking this should even be a function or activity with the coin. But once again, as we learned in the early days, if we weren't out there promoting it, if we weren't out there giving to people and selling it and buying this and buying that, even if it was a horrible financial decision later on, like Dan mentioned the snack bar at HCPP, I'm sure I've bought a lot of $10 dinners there now that are $50 dinners, and I only ate it once. I don't get to enjoy multiple returns from my dinner. But still, if you don't use the currency, if you don't tell people about it, if it's not out there being a currency, it never would have become the phenomenon that it is now. It's the early people selling it, using it, spending it that made it possible. And the other thing I wanted to say is in Vegas, we have a saying, always tip your dealer. And I worry that these IBEX people aren't tipping their dealers. So first of all, they need a discount for the people that come in the store. Like Dan was saying, get 5% back if you use Bitcoin. But beyond that, we need to tip the dealer. The cashier needs to be involved. Tell the cashier they get 1%, or they get $1 for every order, or they get $5 for every order. Get them to promote the Bitcoin, because they're the ones standing there all the time, and they don't care if they get handed dollars or a credit card or a magical pay as a wireless payment, whatever they have here in the UK and everything. It's crazy. But they don't care. But if you give them some skin in the game, you give them a tip, you could perhaps motivate more of these Bitcoin payments and get into a kind of thing where the person just does it naturally. Of course I want 5% off. Of course I want the cashier to get a little kickback. Of course I'll use that Bitcoin, even though it's confusing to me. I'll buy $20, I'll spend $20, and I'll benefit by getting the instant discounts. Josh Agala, what do you think? Bitcoin merchant adoption again?
No, I think it needs to happen with Lightning. Lightning, I think I've said it before on this show, but I remember leaving Australia when Bitcoin was still very young, and coming back, 5 years later, and Bitcoin was still not really adopted much. A lot more people knew about it, a lot of people would buy it and invest in it, but it wasn't used as a currency. Yet in that time, Alipay was everywhere. And all of a sudden, every store had Alipay. What's the difference there? Why? First of all, it's, Alipay is stable. It's pegged to a currency that people understand. But second of all, they have a large business development team that could go door to door, knock on doors, get them, and oh, by the way, if you accept this, we'll give you this extra, and we'll give you education, blah, blah. And this is really missing. And this is where companies like these guys or projects like LNbits and everything that's attached to it, and even BitPay, who have also now enabled Lightning Network, are really important, because they go door to door, educating the clients. And Lightning actually allows for the tip your dealer type of thing. You can have that programmatically put in there to say, hey, here's this, and would you like to, you get 2% off or 5% off if you pay in Bitcoin. And by the way, the cashier gets a little bit, and the thing is with Bitcoin, people don't spend it all the time, but a lot of people, when they see Bitcoin, they'll just do it for the heck of it, and they've got a little bit of change in their pocket. Especially when they use Lightning Network, you've got, maybe $50 with you, or $20 or whatever, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'll give that a go. I want to do it. So you might just do it that once, and you see how quick it is and how convenient, then maybe you'll do it again.
Ben Ark, does the Lightning Network need merchant adoption to succeed?
I mean, I personally know and deeply respect the IBEX team. They were rolling out, they're the ones who are responsible for rolling out that 6-week education program in El Salvador. They're the ones who, in my mind, are keeping the El Salvador experiment going. They're a Guatemalan-based bank, which is just, a neighboring country to El Salvador. And they're professional, they're excited about the technology, super excited about the technology, and they're innovative. And everyone I've met from that team is just so cool. And I know that they sent, I mean, to their own cost, they sent 3 guys to El Salvador, to Miami, 4 months before the Bitcoin Miami conference, to onboard merchants to accept Bitcoin Lightning payments. So people who went to the conference could then go to the store, or could go to a bar or whatever, and then pay Lightning. And then it sounds to me like they've continued to roll out that scheme, because Miami is, for Latin American countries, it's a capital in their mind. It's part of Latin America. And if you look at the US, that's where most remittances come from, is from Miami down into Central and South America. So it's very important that they're there. And a lot of this onboarding is them just providing an ATM, so people can convert cash to Bitcoin and then send Bitcoin back home to somewhere like El Salvador, and someone El Salvador can pay for their electricity bill or whatever else. So I'm extremely inspired to see IBEX on the ground doing the legwork, onboarding merchants, and supporting Bitcoin's growth in what it should be used for, which is banking the unbanked, which a lot of the people in Central and South America are, is unbanked. They don't have banking accounts, they don't have identities. So yeah, I'm extremely excited to see them and the good work they're doing, and I hope they keep it up. I would say that the 2 companies which really stand out to me within the Bitcoin Lightning space, who are innovative and who are just excited about the technology and want to build cool, useful things, is IBEX and CoinFloor or CoinCorner, CoinFly, I never remember the name, based in the Isle of Man. And they're very similar approaches. They've got good teams of just lightning dorks, man, who are just building cool things. And IBEX, for a good while, they were using LNbits as for one of their products, which was the POS, which they were talking about in this article. And now they've built their own POS, which is a lot like our POS in LNbits. But that's cool. It's really nice for our free and open source. So basically, when El Salvador started accepting Bitcoin, and all these companies had to accept Bitcoin, they needed a POS quickly. and IBEX were able to use LM Bits to be able to easily spin up this POS. And then now they've built their own systems, but you can still see that it has its lineage from the LM Bits stuff. And it's super cool to have been able to have a free and open source project which was able to help them out at that particular point in time. And yeah, just a very exciting company, and they're doing great work, and long may it continue. And I know that actually IBEX and CoinCorner, CoinFloor, I can remember the one, that they're being recognized for the good work they're doing, and they're having immense VC rounds right now, and they're going to give huge amounts of capital, and they're going to utilize that capital well. And this is partly why, when you look at Bitcoin's price, and then it's comparable to 2017, and then you look at these sorts of companies, and this is a bank, this is a legitimate Guatemalan bank, which is now engaged in Lightning, and you see the amount of capital and interest which they're getting, and the amount of people are recognizing the good work they're doing. That's what makes me bullish about Bitcoin, because they're going to make this work, man. Yeah, and it's not just Bitcoin, it ripples into all sorts of areas, such as fair and transparent voting systems, which I know IBEX have had some involvement in some of Latin American countries, and the innovation coming from that company is great, and long may it continue.
Well, we're certainly in favor of Bitcoin education here, and a second Ben shout out to IBEX and others who are doing the good work on the ground with the Bitcoin education. But we must move on to the exit question. Do the people doing the Bitcoin education really understand the chicken and the egg problem of Bitcoin? That you at one side have to create merchants who are willing to accept the Bitcoin, but you also have to create consumers who want to spend the Bitcoin, and as I've mentioned, cashiers who want to bring it up and maybe upsell you to some Bitcoin. Let's go to Dan Eve. Do they understand the chicken and the egg problem? Will they succeed in Bitcoin merchant adoption?
I think they understand it, and I hope they succeed. But that's just the way it is, right? It's a two-way thing. You've got to have both the merchant and the buyer that want to that both have well, at least the buyer's got to have Bitcoin, and the merchant's got to accept it. But you've got to convince the merchant that if they don't already have Bitcoin, if they're not already kind of into Bitcoin, you've got to convince them that Bitcoin is a good thing to accept as a payment. So it's going to be a slow race, but it'll be worth it in the long run. And yeah, it's going to be, there'll be businesses that drop it. There'll be businesses that give negative feedback. They're like, oh, it's useless. We don't, no one pays with it. But then there'll be businesses that do succeed with it. So it's just, a matter of time and the spreading of the Bitcoin disease.
Josh Higala, will it be all chicken, all egg, some chicken, mostly egg? What do you think? You're muted again.
I think it's all about time. It just takes time and good tools. Chicken and egg problem is definitely there, but at the end of the day, it's just time. It takes time. There's a lot of people with Bitcoin now. What we need to do is get that into layer 2 so it's easier, get people used to using that. I think there was a lot of friction in layer 1 to layer 2, so people got used to doing layer 1. That's why they're like, no, I'm just going to use layer 1 now, because that's what I was used to. But I think this is actually one of the good things about Ethereum especially, is that they're kind of open to layer 2 quite reasonably. They're just like, oh no, layer 2 is the way to scale. And so a lot of people that were in, like, for instance, the BCH camp would end up over on Ethereum and then start to realize, oh, they need layer 2. Now we understand why Bitcoin needs layer 2. And here we are. So I think it just takes time, people to get used to it, learn about it, do some transactions on it, realize how good it is, or realize what good wallets there are. And then the chicken egg problem turns into chicken egg.
And that's pretty good as long as they leave the shells out. Time is such a responsible answer there, Josh. We're a lot more like Veruca Salt in the Willy Wonka movie. We want it, and we want it now. That's it. Now. I asked for it. I want a golden ticket now. Ben Ark, Will they solve the problem? Do they understand the complexities that they are up against?
100%. Like, they have consumers, they have an entire country of consumers, and it's how do you do the remittances from Miami to El Salvador and then the other countries which are also going to start inevitably using and accepting Bitcoin, such as Guatemala. What are the pain points? Stable medium of exchange. How are they going to solve that problem? And I know IBEX have been doing some research into this, and it's stuff which, you know, when it comes out, can be that black swan. So absolutely understand the problem. And they have the consumers. You know, they just got to facilitate the consumers to be able to move all that liquidity to their friends and family south of the border. You know, so when you look at these other projects, such as Ethereum, and they focus on building these financial tools and assets and whatever else. And okay, but you know, we're banking the unbanked. Like, that's what Bitcoin's for. That's what we're using it for. That's what Lightning's for. And there's a few problems that there's no problem which Bitcoin can't solve with enough time and enough great minds tackling those problems. And IBEX are a group of those great minds. So they know what they're doing.
Well, I gotta say, you guys are very positive, and you're making me a lot more positive on this issue than I was when we started. I wasn't quite sure that they'd be successful with their education, but maybe you guys have turned me around. Maybe we got a chance at this.
That's the thing is as well, so that you have all this talent, there's all this unlocked talent. And in somewhere like El Salvador, okay, so you have this thing which is mandated by, you know, the dictator, whatever, it's bad. But you then have a bunch of people who they're using the US dollar, and they're using that for payments. They don't want to use the US dollar for payments for a whole load of historical reasons. It's their stablecoin, whatever. They want access to digital payments. Like the fruit seller wants to be able to receive digital payments and then be able to go buy a Starbucks like a normal human being, and use a banked human being who can go pay with a digital payment for their Starbucks coffee. Like, that now exists in El Salvador. Part of what's great about this whole thing, and with IBEX as well, is them focusing on this educational program. It's a 6 weeks program which they're going to roll out to 17-year-olds in El Salvador, and they're going to teach them all about the technology, you know, how to set up nodes, how to build services, how to do this, how to do that. And when I think about the things I built, and a lot of it was based from one bar in Berlin, you know, room 77. A lot of the good ideas just came from having something in the wild being used for payments. And then you think entire countries are using Bitcoin, they're using the Lightning Network, and then all that amazing data which we're getting back, which we can use as information to build useful and cool things for. And it's extremely exciting. And then to have like swathes of thousands of, you know, young, inspired kids, 17-year-olds, whatever, who want to then, you know, start developing, working on Bitcoin. It's great. But it's a real opportunity for some of those countries as well. So,
well, I wonder if we will finally reach hyper Bitcoinization, as I guess people like to call it, or as I used to call it, total Bitcoin adoption, TBA. I thought that was much better, but no one else agreed. Moving on to issue 4. Issue 4, BlockFi has just signed a term sheet with FTX official to secure a $250 million revolving credit facility, providing them with access to capital to further bolster their balance sheet and platform strength. Yes, Sam Bankman-Fried, I think that's his name, the owner of FTX, is back again. And this time, as it says in some of the comments on this Twitter thread, he's bailing out the same people he caused to crash, the lenders over at BlockFi. Josh Shigala, what do you think about this incredibly generous offer of a $250 million revolving credit line? Is it kind and he's saving the company? Or is he helping a company with a bad plan, a bad business strategy, who got themselves into trouble? Is he helping them get into more trouble? And what about this Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX, who sponsors everything except the World Crypto Network? Josh Shigala.
Sour man. No, I mean, he should be sponsoring this network. Absolutely.
I don't have a boat yet. You know, I have a boat captain's hat, but no boat.
Oh yeah, that's needed. That's needed, especially because Trezors don't float. It's interesting because, for instance, JP Morgan JP Morgan bailed out a bunch of banks in the 30s to save them, knowing that it's basically good for him because it built out his network of banking facilities, as well as buying up pennies on the dollar and realizing that the underlying value is actually, the underlying business is actually pretty good. It's just that they screwed up. The underlying business for these credit facilities are actually quite good. They're usually over collateralized, and but seemingly centralized issues causing maybe fractional reserving is causing issues. Once again, I'm not sure. This is all, just an opinion, but really, this is why I'm a big fan of decentralized finance, where it's programmatic. These debts are programmatic, so it's totally transparent. You can see what a smart contract has in it locked up. People can choose to lock up how much they need and to generate or to borrow how much they need, rather than letting some company do a whole lot of total degen style investing on behalf of their creditors and then screw it all up. I think the case in a lot of these companies is they actually bought staked ETH, which is obviously not liquid, it's staked, it's not movables, but there is a synthetic called Lido, something like that, ETH, and that was able to be traded. The problem was that Celsius had such a massive position in that they literally didn't have enough liquidity to sell. And then this company, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think they had a position in there as well. And so these bear markets really show the people that aren't running their businesses properly. That's what it comes down to. That they show the businesses that are, or the startups that are really not competent with holding treasury and diversifying properly. And so, we'll see. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I think this is a very smart move on behalf of FTX, and going around basically snacking on bad management and good businesses.
It is interesting, Josh. I don't know if they had a fractional reserve, or maybe they just weren't ready for the downtrend. Maybe they were hodling too, got caught like the rest of us. Ben Ark, what do you think about FTX stepping up to bail out BlockFi?
I mean, I rambled a little bit on the last topic, and I know nothing about this topic, so I'm just going to listen to my peers and my colleagues and all their wisdom and learn more about the topic. Sorry, I don't know much about BlockFi, but I mean, I looked through Reddit at the post, and I looked through the Twitter feed underneath the announcement, and it was lots of people just saying, "Does this mean you're insolvent?" So I'm assuming that they're having financial troubles, and that's why they need the money. But yeah, I know too little about it to be able to input anything of value.
Yeah, nobody ever loans you $250 million when things are going good. Dan, Eve, your thoughts about BlockFi and the exciting bailout from FTX?
Well, this is another. I think so. After the Luna fiasco and that sort of impact on lending and locking up funds and being able to stake in the Bitcoin and crypto, this is kind of another big negative event. I think this was the BlockFi one specifically, if I'm not mistaken, was something to do with exposure to Three Arrows Capital, and I think Voyager Digital also had a. In fact, they're also bailed out by FTX, and I think it was like $100 million more, like it was $350 million. And I think that in general, there's definitely a problem, certainly with Bitcoin. I remember when you interviewed Trace Mayer in Unconfiscatable in 2019 he was talking about the rehypothecation issues, right? So the fractional reserve lending, isn't as bad as an issue as a rehypothecation. So the Bitcoin just goes to one place and goes to another and goes to another, and then everyone on the train ends up screwed. So I think that as Josh made a really good point about the transparency, albeit they're still hackable, there's still vulnerabilities, whatever, but the transparency of smart contracts enables that more automation, so that there's more guarantees of, especially when it comes to collateralized lending, more guarantees that there's positions are going to be able to be funded if something actually bad happens, that debt goes bad. So it'll be interesting when we see more of that happen in Bitcoin. I know there's companies like Sovereign, for example, that do Bitcoin loans, and I think they do it via RSK and via this, that, and the other. But as we see smart contracts move to on Bitcoin, more Ethereum like DeFi products, where you can securely have your Bitcoin and use it collateralized, and it's not going to be susceptible to someone else's crazy hedging, or not hedging, but they're some other company, in the hands of another company, right? It's locked in a smart contract and you can borrow against it nice and easily, rather than it being in the hands of someone else and you not knowing where it's going to go, because it's determined via a smart contract, so what the outcomes are going to be. There's obviously people comparing this to the financial crisis and saying, oh, rabble, this is Bitcoin was born out of the financial crisis, and now crypto and Bitcoin is just another bailout sort of situation. But it's completely different, right? There happens to be a bailout of companies with bad behavior, but the thing is with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is the money that is good, fiat is the money that's bad, and all these other crazy ass debt instruments that we had, like the credit default swaps and whatever, that caused the 2008 crisis. So yeah, whilst you can make comparisons, they are they're very, very vaguely analogous. The fact is that Bitcoin is the hardest of money. And so it's a completely different, story altogether from traditional, they're bailouts. That's the only similarity there is. And it makes perfectly good sense for a company that's got lots of money in the bags to sweep up businesses that were doing good. As Josh said, they were doing good. They had a good underlying model, but they just stuffed it up through human error and through from not managing their risk. So I think it makes perfect sense. And also it restores a bit of faith in Bitcoin and crypto. It's not this complete wasteland of wild west where no one cares about anyone else. It's complete Sharkville, and FTX is happy to see all the competitors completely die and for them to rise out of the ashes. It's good for the ecosystem that we actually work together in usurping cash and fiat money around the world and replace it with something more solid and more predictable via code.
Let's move on to the exit question. FTX and Crypto.com set the world on fire recently with an unbelievable advertising spend. FTX sponsoring every single umpire in Major League Baseball. FTX sponsoring their own arena in Miami for the Miami Heat, and a Larry David Super Bowl commercial, among others. Meanwhile, on the other side, Crypto.com, not to be outdone, sponsored the Los Angeles Lakers arena in Los Angeles, the Crypto.com arena, as well as having the famous and now perhaps regrettable Matt Damon commercial, which seems to be the end of all positive news about Bitcoin. Josh Segala, who won, FTX or Crypto.com?
I don't know. The thing is, when you're doing really well, I think it's great at spending marketing, and they're very profitable business. What I'm more worried about is startups in the space that raise money and then have parties before, like huge parties and stuff before they've even got a product. So, if there's a wildly successful business and you can do sort of ego marketing spend stuff by going around sponsoring, arenas and things, great, go for it. It helps out. One thing I do remember is BitPay back in the day calling it, the Bitcoin Cup or something. I don't know what it was.
The Bitcoin Bowl.
They
could have called it the BitPay Bowl, but they wanted everyone to invest with them.
So that was one cool thing, is that they actually, went with Bitcoin rather than BitPay. And I just hope that actually one thing that they should be spending money on is education, rather than just weird, silly ads. Like really get people educated, get them learning, put money spend into boots on the ground business development, getting people accepting it, trading it, not just speculating and stuff like that. So that's what I would like to see. And so that's a weird answer to your question, but
Education, that's not as exciting as a Super Bowl commercial. Ben Ark, who's the winner, FTX or Crypto.com? Matt Damon or Larry David?
This is again going back to IBX. Like they could be just doing these vanity things. They could be pouring some of that because they got huge, capital. They could be pouring it into these vanity ad projects, but they're not. They're building stuff, which is great. Crypto.com, like I just because they had the coin Crypto.com, I put like a couple of $100 into it because I thought, well, that's innovative. No one's ever called the coin like the .com, and they've also got Crypto.com, so they're probably going to do all right. And then I logged into my account and I had thousands, $3,000 worth of money in there. And I was like, oh wow, cool, this will be my new shitcoin stash, and I'll speculate with it. And then I tried to log back into it recently, and my account's just gone. And I'm like, okay, well done, Crypto.com. This great international player and this incredible technology. Like, where's my account? Like, I was logging in with the same email, and then I went through I was like, maybe I'm crazy. And then I went through my email and I had all these emails from Crypto.com, and I was like, no, this is the email I used. And now I had to create, and now I've created a new account and my balance is zero. So I sent a message to their support team. And then I'm like, fuck, I can't be asked for this. This is scammy, crappy shitcoin exchange. But there is like $3,000 worth of Crypto.com coin on there, whatever. So I should probably try and chase it. But yeah, I was just reminded that, no matter how cool a URL, domain name you have, you're still a shitcoin exchange and your technology sucks.
That's very reminiscent of when Ripple used to offer self-hosted wallets, and they gave me, I don't know, $25 in Ripple. And for the first time in a long time, I was like, I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to keep that in Ripple and see how it goes, my big $25 investment. And sure enough, by the time Ripple had gone to the moon and I came back to check on my, valuable $25, they decided to cancel their self-hosting wallet program, and they'd sent me an email that I didn't read that told me how to get my account, and my $25 that they gave me for free was soon vaporized. It probably would have been $125. I could have gotten all the pens and pencils that I wanted. But yeah, I've been there, Ben, that it's strange when you have an account and you think you own something and then you don't own anything at all. So like Trace Mayer said, own your own keys, keep your Bitcoin and your other coins off of those servers, and then you really own something.
Bring back Trace Mayer. God bless Trace Mayer. Bring him back.
He was a good guy. It's too bad they had to excommunicate him and throw him under the bus because he liked an altcoin once. Everyone likes an altcoin once. Trace should come back.
It was cool, man. Like it was
Mimblewimble coin. Yeah,
Mimblewimble was good technology, and like Trace Mayer, he was like privacy on chain. When he privacy on chain, he used to be fungible. That was his thing, and he just shilled.
And he had a great speech about the network effects of Bitcoin. I mean, I talk about collectibles and other things, but he just nailed it so well with those network effects, and was just a wonderful speaker for Bitcoin.
He was, and Lightning. Mimblewimble's now on Litecoins.
Yes, but they burnt him down. They made him feel bad, and now he disappeared. Dan,
Nimblewimble as well. It was a lot of like Bitcoin core developers and Lightning developers are very excited about Nimblewimble, and it's dropped in their weird Slack, in the middle of the night by Voldemort or whatever it was, and they used these Harry Potter names, and it was all very anon. And it's a great concept, and bring back Trace Man.
$157 volume.
I think it was Tom Marvioso Riddle or something, which is Voldemort. Yeah. But Dan, Eve, would you rather have FTX Arena in Miami or Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles? Who won the marketing battle of the century?
Oh, I don't think the clash of the marketing titans is finished yet. There's we're just in bear market. things are going to be really heating up again when we get back into the halvening coming up, and everyone getting ready to build up their customer base. Back. I think crypto.com, they've got that card thing. The way you get Bitcoin back or crypto back or whatever for spending, which I think is a kind of a good idea. Although it does cost you, you've got to kind of lock up funds. But I think ultimately the show ain't over until Matt Damon sings.
And it's never too late for some more great Bitcoin advertisements, and I hope we'll see them in the future. I just had a recent thing where I was flipping through channels and I was watching some motocross racing, and sure enough, in the background on a bunch of the signs, some company who is a Bitcoin company had put the Bitcoin logo and their name all over the race. So even if you're just watching some random TV, you can't get away from Bitcoin, and it's still a bear market. So there's still marketing going on out there. Congratulations to both FTX and Crypto.com for spending a ton of money. I think the real winners are anyone who collected the money, whether it was for the stadium sponsorship or the television ads, or even just making the television ads. A lot of people got paid up and down the lines there. So shout out to anyone who got paid. We're running out of time. Josh Segala, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
I don't really. No predictions or stories of the weeks. All I have to say is that we're just keep building. That's what we're doing through this bear market. Don't lose sight of the actual evolution of money. The price might be down, but you can keep on building, and that's really what we're doing at the Standard.io. And yeah, it's great where some of the best work comes out in these times, because it's just heads down and working.
Ben Ark, a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Story of the week is I was finally playing with hosted channels, and it blew my mind, and I loved it. I installed Anton and Ilya, who made the Simple Bitcoin wallet and the Bitcoin Lightning wallet, which is the first Lightning wallet, phone Lightning wallet, and it's still one of the best ones. But they've made the Simple Bitcoin wallet, which is a great Lightning wallet, really great. And Josh's is kind of similar to, well, not similar, but it's kind of similar to what you're doing with the standard stuff. They're working on using hedging, which was interesting, the hedging story, on creating stable medium exchanges using like a forked version of Simple Bitcoin wallet, which is very interesting. But anyway, Simple Bitcoin wallet, what's great about it is when you install it, sadly it's only for Android, but when you install it, you automatically get a hosted channel. So what's a hosted channel? A hosted channel is it's a Lightning channel which somebody else owns, so it's custodial. But rather than, so say if you use something like Wallet of Satoshi, or if you use a Blue Wallet or something, they can technically like deduct funds. And there's no real way you can hold them to account. As with a hosted channel, you have like a cryptographic proof, so you can actually say that somebody ripped you off. So it's on that spectrum of custodianship. It's like a good version of custodianship in that if there's a node and you've got a hosted channel with them, then you can hold that node runner to account. And if there's a big player like Alan Big or something who's offering this kind of service, and it's in their interest to offer one of these services, it's just a very useful function for the Lightning Network for you to be able to very quickly get inbound liquidity while you build up your channels and while you build up your network availability, so you can get inbound and outbound liquidity. So I played with FiatJaff's fork so in Simple Bitcoin wallet, they have a thing called Immortan, which does it's like a light node, which does these hosted channels. Basically Eclair has this plugin, so if you have Eclair, you can offer hosted channels to people and then get some yield for it. Simple Bitcoin wallet uses that, so you instantly get this hosted channel, which you can then use to receive and send funds, but then you can also build up your own channels as well. So it's a really interesting way of just people instantly being able to use Lightning in a way which is custodial, but it's not as custodial as something like Wallet of Satoshi, which is good. It's a great thing. FiatJaff forked Immortan, and he's made this thing called Cliche. And Cliche is great, man. I did a YouTube video, and like within like 1.5 minutes of my awkward typing, I was able to download the Lightning node, install it, and get a hosted channel, and get inbound liquidity and receive an inbound payment instantly. So for a service or a business which wants to engage with the Lightning Network, this is a really easy on-ramp for them. But they still then have the ability to build up their channels and liquidity on channels. So it's just a great project. So Cliche by Fiat on LMBits Infinity. So that's our Go version of LMBits. We actually have that built in, so you can run Cliche. I want to get on Legend as well. It's super exciting. Yeah, I wanted to. Can I do a screen share? I can't. Why can't I do screen shares? I couldn't do a screen share last time either. It sucks. Anyway, there's a project by Anton and by Ilya. They have a project called Standard Sats, which is extremely exciting. But it's got terrible branding, and it's really like, you can kind of see why it's like flying under the radar, because it's something which they've publicized very well. But what it does is if you have an Eclair node, you can install this plugin which allows you to do hosted channels, and then you can install another plugin which can do hedging to Collider and then some other exchanges. So you can have like a USD denominated, so your sats can be denominated in USD. So you can put $10 of USD in, and then the sats kind of rebalance themselves. So you've always got $10 worth of USD, essentially. It sticks to the $10 peg. And the way it's done is through this hedging mechanism. Very interesting. As a kind of band-aid until something like the Stand.io is launched, like reliable, good, stable coin solutions, which are really so needed in our industry for people who want to use Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies for medium of exchange. So extremely excited about that. And what's super cool about it is I was chatting to the guys, and I was like, okay, so you've got like actual currencies on there, such as USD and then GBP, Euro, Yen, that sort of thing, which you can peg to. But I was like, what about the Welsh pound? And obviously the Welsh pound doesn't exist. But like, I could spin up an Eclair node, and then in my little local village, people could be downloading this wallet using a hosted channel on my node, and then it could be denominated in Cymru coin or Welsh pound. And as a sort of like cultural medium of exchange, it could be something like the El Salvador dollar. You could similarly use it. Like you could have you could kind of spin up something which is pegged to the US dollar, but call it the El Salvador dollar, and it's their sats are pegged. And the mechanism they have in there, I mean, they're very transparent. They say, look, this is an experiment, but it's a very exciting experiment. And I'm also very excited to be, so basically I PR'd their project and said, can we get Cymru coin in there, Welsh pound? And they were like, fuck yeah, that's a great idea. Like, brilliant. Like, let's have a non-existent currency which exists on there, which is then pegged to something like the British pound, which could be used as a medium of exchange in Wales. And we're actually using sats, but it means that the sats, although it's hosted, sorry, I'm going rabbiting on. Although it's using sats, it will have the name of Cymru coin or Welsh pound. So I think it's like an interesting and very cool hack. And these hosted channels are great, and these light nodes are great. And I look forward to experimenting and playing with them a little bit more.
Very cool. Dan, Eve, a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
I have no story of the week, but my prediction is that this Sunday, although I hope the weather gets better because it's peeing it down right now, but this Sunday I'm going to see the Eagles for the first time live ever with my fam. So my sister and my dad and mum, we're going to go and rock out to the Eagles.
Wow.
And and so I'm really looking forward to it. And I was going to take my Bitcoin flag, because the last Glastonbury I went to, I promised myself, I was like, I'm going to take a Bitcoin flag. This is before I owned the Bitcoin flag that went to Stonehenge. And I was going to be like, I want to be that lone nutter that's with a giant Bitcoin flag, and just so that I could go. And I wish I did, man, because now I could be like, look back at videos and be like, that was me with the Bitcoin flag at Glasgow or whatever. But I didn't do it. I was going to do it at the Eagles, but unfortunately, it looks like flags are banned. So very disappointed, but I will be seeing the Eagles, which I'm really, really pumped about. So non-crypto, but a tenuous link, actually. Obviously, I covered Hotel California, but with Hotel Poloniex, but but looking forward to it, because the Eagles are a great band, and going to be a cool little event.
And I've already had my little moment, but next week on the 2nd of July, Avon Valley in the UK. If anyone is UK resident, then go along to Avon Valley to the Bitcoin adventure. It's a one-day event. Will be great. If you Google Bitcoin adventure Avon Valley, you'll find it. I'll be there. Hopefully Dan will be there.
Roger from the chat will be there as well. Also, was at the Lightning event a couple of years ago. I've been to many events, but I remember chatting to Roger at the Lightning event a couple of years ago, and where actually also I sung Hotel Poloniexia. But is it a sleepover, Ben? Is it camping? The Bitcoin
Avon Valley has, so it has. It's a nice family venue actually. If you've got family, kids, whatever, bring them. But you don't need to. I mean, they have a bar as well, so you can just be a decadent adult as well. But yeah, they have like a campsite as well attached to it. It's beautiful, man. It's a really nice venue they've got going on there, and it's you go to their website and I wish I could do the screen share. You'll see it. It's cool that someone who has like a venue like that is interested in Bitcoin and wants to educate people on Bitcoin. And there's some great Bitcoin UK Bitcoiners who are going. I think Pete McCormack's going. It should be a great event. Hopefully we could do some video for World Crypto Network while we're there.
Oh, screen share is turned on, Ben. You have a software issue. But yeah, Dan, I sure hope the weather improves for the Eagles. That sounds like a great concert. It'd be a shame if it's rained out. My story of the week is I'm still traveling. I'm back in Paris, so I got some wine and everything. I just want to say cheers to everybody. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for giving us a thumbs up, subscribing down there, and for chatting in the chat and putting up the comments later. We really appreciate it. We don't, this show isn't monetized anymore. We don't put up the QR code. We don't want any donations. We just want you guys to watch it and to have conversations and ideas and thoughts about Bitcoin and other things. So we're excited that you're here. Even if you're a smaller audience, we appreciate you more. Because we can have more interaction with you and you can really get more out of it. So bring to the show what you can. Give us some comments, give us some chats, thumbs up and stuff. And until next time, bye.